I have my cap. I have my coffee. Now let's take a look at the new Cubase 10.5. We're in November, and November is the time of the year when Steinberg releases a new version of Cubase. And now we're up to Cubase 10.5, which is quite exciting. So, the big question is it worth the upgrade? And I'm going to try to help you out with this question throughout this video. So I'm going to share with you my top favorite features found in Cubase 10.5 that I think are worth looking at. For feature number one, the combine selection tools. If we look on top, we have all of our tools. And on my side, the tools that I work a lot with are the range selection tool and the object selection tool. And I always select one or the other with the key command 1 and 2, okay, which is gonna transition from one to another. Now, what they added here is very nice. They added a small feature called the combine selection tools, where you can activate on the left of the object selection tool right on top. And that will combine those two tools, the range selection tool and the object selection tool. So this way, depending on where you are on the track height, you can have the range selection tool activated or the object selection tool activated. So if you're at the bottom of the track, in the bottom section of the track, you're going to get the object selection tool. If you go on the top section of a track, now you're going to end up with the range selection tool. And you don't have to select an event. That can also be done on an empty space within the track height. Okay, now you need to note something though. There's a minimum of track height that you need for it to work, or else by default, the object selection tool will be selected. So you need at least a minimum of a bit more than 2 spaces of track height for it to work. So now, again, you get to the top part of that track and you get the range selection tool. And then you can just go to the bottom part of the same track and to get to the object selection tool, which makes editing way faster. Now, if you have another tool selected, okay, like the erase tool that I have selected right now, and I want to go back to the combine selection tools, I can just select the object selection tool key command or the range selection tool key command. One or the other are going to go to the object selection tools. If I want to just toggle between the 3 sizing options found in the object selection tools, I just use the same key command as before, and that will allow me to toggle between those 3 sizing options. Okay, so this is not going to change. Now, there's a shortcut that you can use to activate the combined selection tools, and this is the Shift, Alt, and 1, and that will activate or deactivate that feature. So Shift, Alt, and 1, or Shift, Option 1, depending if you're on Mac or PC. And you can also change that in the key command window, and that goes under combined selection tools on and off. Now for feature number 2, the EQ and spectral curve comparison mode. All right, so now let's open the kick drum channel settings window. And if we look at the EQ window, right on the top left of the EQ window, we have the activate channel comparison option that we can activate. And that will allow us to compare an EQ curve of a channel with another channel's EQ curve, which is quite practical in some cases. It makes me think a bit of what we find on a FabFilter Pro Q3 EQ. So let's activate that feature. And now we have our kick drum that is the reference channel. And right to the kick, we have that orange empty space. And if we click on that space, this is where we're going to select the channel we want to compare the kick drum with, in our case. And I'm going to select the bass. So if I click on play, what I'm seeing here is the kick drum EQ curve in blue. At the back of the kick drum EQ curve, we have an orange curve, which is the reference curve, in this case, the bass. Now, we can go from one to another as far as the channel settings window goes. So if I select the bass, okay, the comparison channel, we end up on the bass's channel settings window. So we can adjust our EQ settings right away and then jump back to the reference channel, in our case, the kick drum, and do the same. And at the same time, we see in the background the other tracks EQ curve, which is very practical. And we can also solo a channel if you want to by clicking on the solo icon right here. And that will solo the actual kick channel in this case. And if we go and select the bass one, we can solo that one also, okay, which is pretty practical. And we can now access the EQ display settings right here on the same EQ window by clicking on the equalizer settings. And this is where we'll be able to customize the display of that EQ. I really like this feature. It's pretty cool to have this integrated in Cubase. Now for feature number 3, we have improvements on the import tracks from project. We have that feature in Cubase where we can import a track from another project. And this is a very cool feature, but it was very limited because the only channels we had access to import into our session was an audio channel or MIDI channels. Okay, so those were the two types of channels that we were able to import into a session. Now that has changed with this new version of Cubase. And this is a feature that I like a lot. Now I'm very happy they made the change. So if we click on File, go down to Import, and then down to Tracks from Project, I'm going to go down and select another project. Let's go with this one, and there you go. So I'm going to select this project and import one of the tracks from that project into my current project. So this feature will allow you to import in a session different types of tracks found in Cubase. From audio, MIDI of course, instrument, sampler tracks, marker, video, VCA, group, effects, channel tracks, folder, and also chord tracks. Now, the only exception to the rule are the tempo and signature tracks that won't be supported. But apart from that, you can import all bunch of tracks, which is very, very useful. So this is what you get as far as the import option window goes. So there's the tracks that you can select and import into your new session. So let's say, for example, let's say I want to import the lead vocal, okay? The lead vocal track, which has like a bunch of plugins as inserts that I want to just import into my session. I can just select it. And on the right side, I have like other options. If I want to copy the actual events, okay, the audio from that track, I can just select events and parts, and that will import those events that are on that selected track directly into my session. In this case, I'm going to have to go down to media files and decide if I want to copy those files to my current audio folder. Now, in my case, this is not what I want to do. I just want to copy the actual channel without any events. So I'm going to leave that unchecked. And channel and inspector settings. Okay, so I want to keep that. And you can also import the automation if there's some automation going on that channel. I'm going to uncheck this one because I don't need that automation. And if you have some events that you want to import, you can select from those three different positions, from import at absolute position, import at relative position, or import at cursor position. And you just click on OK. And there you go. If I look at the bottom of my project window, I have that new channel that was just added. And if I look at the insert, I have all of my plugins that I had on the previous project. And now it's in this new project. So very, very practical. So this is a nice feature that is going to be very useful as far as I'm concerned. Now for feature number 4, colorize mix console channels. Now this is a feature that a lot of people were asking for, and it finally made it to the new version of Cubase. So let's take a look at the preferences window, and we're going to go down to user interface and to track and mix console channel colors. And this is where we're going to find that new feature. Now, some of those features were moved from the tracks section under event display directly to that new track and mix console channel color section out of preferences. There we can find the auto track channel color mode, which used to be under event display and tracks. And also same for colorize tracks, which is right here. Okay, this is where we can colorize our tracks or not. And now we have that folder tracks feature where we can deactivate if we don't want our folders to be colorized, okay, with the channel's colors. That can be deactivated. So I'm going to keep it this way. I kind of like it when they're not colorized. And then we have the mix console channels. I'm going to check that up and I'm going to click on apply. And this is what it's going to look like if we go on the mix console. Now that looks pretty cool. I'm gonna go down again to preferences and down to tracks and mix console channel colors. And what we can do here is to play with the color strength, which will increase or decrease the intensity of the colors on the mix console and also on the tracks themselves. So it's the same option here that will change both the intensity of the mix console and the tracks at the same time. And we also have the selected channel brightness. So the channel selected is the one on the left, the first input channel. If I bring my brightness to the minimum, this is how it's going to look like. It's going to lean more towards a darker tone of gray. If I bring that to the maximum brightness, now my selected channel is going to lean a bit more to a lighter tone of gray. Okay, so this is where you can change the brightness of that selected track. So this is going to make it easy for you to know which track is selected or tracks are selected. Okay, so if you select more than one, they're all going to have that gray tone to them. Okay. Now at the bottom of the mix console, we have the name field. Everything is now black. Okay, and this is made on purpose. When you have one track selected, you have that name field brighter at the same time. So it makes it easier, visually speaking, to see what track is selected. Now for feature number 5, export video. Now you're going to love this feature if you mix audio for videos, commercials or short films or YouTube videos like I do. That can be a very nice feature to work with. And that is to be able to bounce your audio with your video and create a new video file with the audio included on that file, which is great. So let's take a look at how that works. So this is a clip of one of my YouTube videos. So let's say I just remixed the audio and I'm ready to bounce that into a new file. So what I do is just to set up the left and right locators. That is very important. And then go to File, Export and Video, and that will open up the Export Video dialog box. From that point, I can add a file name. So let's call this one video 1. I'm going to export it directly on the desktop. As a video format, by default, it is going to be an MP4. You can add timecode if you want to, and you can select which stereo out you want. Now, I only have one, so this the stereo out is selected by default. I can export in real time if I want to, and offline also. There's the export range, which is basically the range between the locators that we set up earlier. And we have all the file information on the right side. So when I'm ready, I click on Export Video, and that will export a new video file on my desktop, which will include the audio that I worked on. And then I end up with my video file fully exported, which is quite nice. Now for feature number 6, we have a new plugin, and this one is called the Multi-Tap Delay. That is an amazing creative tool. There's so much you can do with this plugin. Now, I'm not going to talk about all the features found on this plugin within this video, but I'm going to do a separate video about this plugin only. But basically, this is a multi-tap delay plugin that you can add up to 8 taps. It's very versatile. There's a bunch of stuff you can do, even if you want to use it as a simple delay. You can add some loop effects, also tap effects, which is very cool, and also some post effects, which will apply those effects on the entire delay. So you can use that delay as a simple delay if you want to, and add those post effects afterwards, which can be very cool at the same time. Like the effects like chorus, phaser, envelope filter, overdrive, which is quite cool. So let's have just a quick listen on one of the presets that I found that sounded pretty interesting on the piano. So. So very good addition to the plugin list that we have in Cubase. So I'm going to come back with a video on this plugin later on. You can now open Cubase in safe mode. So that can be very useful if you're facing some types of bugs or problems with the session. To open Cubase in safe mode can actually help you a lot. So what you need to do to open Cubase in safe mode is to hold down the Shift, Control, and Alt keys while opening Cubase, and that will open up the safe mode window, as we see here. So one option is to open Cubase without third-party plugins. And then you have the preferences options available for you to choose from. The first one is selected by default, which is use current program preferences. But if you want to disable your program preferences, you can do so. And you can also delete your preferences also from that safe mode window. And now that I've checked the plugin option, it will load Cubase without third-party plugins. So only the plugins within Cubase are going to be available. So if I have a problem with a session and I think a third-party plugin might be the cause of my problem, I can load Cubase without those third-party plugins. So I can troubleshoot from that point. So very practical. So now I have Cubase open in safe mode without third-party plugins. So if I add a track and I insert a plugin, as you can see, I only have the plugins from Cubase. And of course, the Curve EQ from Voxengo, which is part of Cubase also. But those are the only plugins available for me to work with in safe mode. Now, there's a bit more features and changes that has been made to this version of Cubase that I'm not going to cover on this video. But just one last quick one that is one of the changes that was done is the Add Track window. Now you have access to all the tracks available within Cubase that can be added from that same window. In the last version of Cubase, More Tracks was in another window, but now is part of the same Add Track window. So it's more simple this way anyway. So that's the kind of changes that was done on 10.5. So those are my top features that were added to Cubase 10.5. Now on my side, I purchased the upgrade, so I think it's worth it, but let me know if it is for you in the comment section. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, don't forget to share and to like, and also to subscribe to this YouTube channel if you're new here. Until next time, take care and see you.